Tress of the Emerald Sea, Chapter 51, The Dragon. The spore seas aren't that deep, relatively speaking, compared, for example, to the depth of the lilting abyss on Threnody. The spore seas are practically ponds. But when you have to hike to the bottom, all the while being cuffed and shoved by an impatient pirate with a terminal disease, a few hundred yards can feel far, far longer. Nonetheless, it did beat the traditional method of reaching the bottom of an ocean. Crow carried a lantern, and the way the light glistened off the crimson tunnel made it seem as if they were climbing down the dragon's own gullet. Tress wondered what would happen if the stiff walls were exposed to water. Would spikes grow out of them? Or did the dragon's strange power prevent the aether from expressing itself? It says more than I could ever explain about the changes in Tress that she briefly considered licking the wall just to see. Eventually, the tunnel leveled out, then opened into a vast chamber, also made completely out of solidified spores. Tress had been expecting to reach the bottom and find out what was down there. Was it stone, soil, or merely piles and piles of aether spine sunken from thousands of years of rain? She supposed she would have a lifetime down here to learn. That was when the true weight of it all hit her. She'd spent her life down here. She'd spent her life down here. She had failed Charlie. Equally bad, somehow more terrifying in the moment, she might never see the moons again. The prospect of never again seeing the sky, never again feeling the sunlight, never being bathed in the verdant moon's glow, it made her knees grow weak. Crow shoved her forward anyway, causing Tress to stumble into the vast crimson chamber, then fall to her knees. She choked back her emotions, as tears could be fatal if those spores could indeed express their aethers, but she couldn't help curling up, trembling. For a time, she was insensate to Crow's cursing, even the none too gentle kicks. It was all so very much to carry. The weight of the day's emotions stacked upon Tress in a heap, heavy as the ocean itself. Had it only been earlier that afternoon, it had only been earlier that afternoon when she felt vibrant, relieved, triumphant as she was pulled through the rain? Could a day contain too many moments? Yes. The hours and minutes had been the same today as every day, but each of those moments inside had been fat, like a wineskin filled to bursting. Tress felt as if she were going to leak it all out, vomit emotion all over the place. There wasn't enough Tress to contain it. You still have everything you need. Did he mean the flare gun? Crow was carrying that, wasn't she? But Tress could not best Crow in a physical contest, and she had conclusive empirical evidence of that. On your feet, girl, Crow said, hauling her up, then shoving her forward. The chamber ahead of them appeared empty, save for the enormous spore columns wrapped in black ribbons of cloth. Braziers burned at the corners, revealing a large corridor leading away to the right, but they didn't completely dispel the chamber's darkness. Indeed, shadow dominated, as if the lights only existed by its forbearance. Dragon? Crow called, her voice echoing. I have come as stipulated with the proffer of sacrifice. Show yourself. The word dragon has filtered its way into nearly every society I visited. But unlike the name Doug, this wasn't the result of natural linguistics. Rather, the dragons have made certain that they are known and remembered, a feat often accomplished by interacting with said societies during their formative years. Like a child learning her name, cultures learn to respect and fear the dragons. It's a matter of convenience, really, though the vast majority of the people in the Cosmere will never meet a dragon, let alone see one in their natural form. Dragons do like to interact with mortals. Like a grandmother tucking away that bit of string that wrapped her package, the dragons want to know they have a certain number of easily influenced cultures around for the proverbial rainy day. All of this is to explain that when Tress and Crow saw the shadow moving down the large hall to the right, they kind of knew what to expect. Indeed, it had a sinuous neck, a reptilian body, and two vast wings formed as if to block out the sky. Other details were unexpected. For instance, the mane of silvery hair that adorned the dragon's head, continuing down under the neck and chin as a beard, or the metallic silver ridges that split the dragon's otherwise onyx hide, outlining his features. This silver ran down the sides of all six limbs, up the sides of the neck, and formed two burnished horns. Accompanied by a line of spikes down the back, more subdued, the subjects of the regal majesty of those horns. There were other mortals in the dragon's house, though they were not allowed in the entry hall when the supplicants arrived. Xisus did not want his servants to be tainted by things like reminders of the world outside. They had important work to do, after all, serving him and his research into the complex ecosystem at the bottom of the Spore Sea. It's commonly presumed that dragons collect hoards of wealth. I've often wondered if that tale began because of some otherworldly metal left behind on their corpses. I've never known a dragon to be fond of riches. Ideas, though, those they do hoard, and in this area, they are misers fit for legend. The dragon did not make the ground shake, despite his enormous size. He was easily as tall as four humans standing on one another's shoulders. Indeed, he seemed to glide as he approached, flowing around the columns, entering the shadows at the center of the room. Firelight reflected off the dragon's steel, making it seem like liquid metal as he loomed over the two women. Tress gasped. Even Crow cringed back. When Xisus didn't speak, Crow found her courage. It had gotten a step or two away, and spoke. Dragon Xisus, I have come to initiate your ancient pact of promise. She gestured to Tress. To this end, I have brought you this slave to work in your domain. The dragon leaned down, his breath like burned hickory wood, and eyed Tress. She looked into those eyes, which were shimmery mother of pearl, and thought she saw into infinity. Then reflected, she saw herself and Crow. You have everything you need. Tress's courage had never gotten away, though it had been pounded flat by all the other emotions. As it began to shine through, a certain whimsy struck Tress. Crow had nothing to lose, but Tress had everything to lose, and in that moment she bet it all on a desperate ploy. Dragon Xisus, Tress said, her voice ragged, I have come to initiate your ancient pact of promise. To this end, I have brought you this slave to work in your domain. Then Tress gestured to Crow. To show you the dragon. What do you think? And now, chapter 52, the sacrifice. What? The dragon said. What? Crow said. She will make a good slave, Tress explained. She is very strong. I can show you the bruise on my stomach as proof, and she is not in the least bit afraid of spores. She used midnight ether earlier tonight. Crow grabbed Tress, reaching as if to forcibly shut her up. The dragon interrupted this by very deliberately moving his forearm forward, letting 5 silver claws, each as long as Crow's leg, click against the crimson ground. I will not have you harming one another in my house, he said in a deep voice. One of you shall be my servant, and I do not like damaged property. Crow looked at her reflection in the dragon's steel claws, then let go of Tress. Great dragon, Crow said, this girl is the servant brought to be your payment. I am the captain of this ship. So, you're saying you're the more valuable prize, Tress said, rubbing her throat where Crow's nails had scored her. I do prefer my servants to be of a certain quality, Xisus said. His voice was deep, not in a musical sense, more in the way that the ground might vibrate with a profound resonance during a quake. But you would also prefer a young servant, wouldn't you? Crow said, realizing she would have to argue her case. I am old and calcified and stubborn. She's young and easy to mold. Why, she hasn't even been off her home island for a month yet. The dragon settled down, folding his arms. To the horror of both women, he looked amused. Go on, he said to Tress. You have a response to that? Tress said. You seem to like someone who enjoys a challenge. Which would be more interesting to train? A girl who knows nothing, or a vibrant sea captain full of skills you could unlock? I prefer not to make too much effort in training my servants, girl, the dragon said. You argue against your interests. Yes, said Crone. Besides, she's more expert in spores. She's been building devices of ingenious make. She designed a kind of verdant bomb that raised our ship up high above the sea so rains didn't destroy us. And she made a gun of fire spores. The girl is some kind of spore prodigy. She will serve you well. Is it true? The dragon asked Tress. Did you make those things? I did, Tress admitted. I'm not very smart, though. I merely took some designs I found and tweaked them. Humble, too, Crow noted. Who wants an arrogant servant? Crow has experience in leading people, sir, Tress said. She would make an excellent overseer for your servants. Ha, Crow said. Tell him honestly what my crew thinks of me. They hate me, don't they, Tress? Admit it. The dragon rested his head on his forearms, looking almost like a dog with its head on its paws, and grinned at the exchange. Powerful Zisis, Crow said. This girl is beloved of the people of my ship. She's earned their hearts after only a short time sailing with us. She is an excellent cook and is nauseatingly selfless. When she heard her friends were going to mutiny to prevent me from trading her, she offered to go willingly to save them from danger. Is this so? The dragon asked Tress. Tress said, Great Dragon, Crow needs you to take her as a servant. She's dying of the spores in her blood. Only by living with you could she be healed. It would be magnanimous and wise of you to take her. Ha! Crow said, pointing to Tress. He knows I'll ask healing and trade for you. I will live just fine after this. True, the dragon said. Child, you're losing ground quickly. He gestured to Crow. I cannot see a reason why I'd want this piece of filth in my domain when I could have someone even-tempered, well-liked, and skilled. You should have tried to be more awful, girl, Crow said. I warned you that this life was not for you. Tress took a deep breath, looking up at the dragon. I think I'd make a bad servant, great dragon, because I really, really don't want to be one. And I do, Crow said. The dragon hushed her with a click of his claws. He narrowed his iridescent eyes at Tress. Tell me, why is it you do not wish to serve me? Contrary to what you might have been told, my servants are treated well. You shall know no disease while you're here. You'll have engaging work, regular meals, and books in your off hours to read at your leisure. But, dragon, sir, Tress said, there is someone I must rescue, and the man I love is held captive. I need to free him. I don't care for the hearts of mortals, the dragon said, except for how they taste. Do you have any other argument why I shouldn't take you right now and put you to work in the kitchens? Because the Tress she had been might have accepted her fate. The Tress she had been would have wanted to please him. That Tress was dead. She was now the Tress she had become. Because I won't stay. No matter what you do, I will not give up what I want for you, dragon. No one has ever escaped my domain. Then I will be the first, Tress said, growing louder as she continued, because I can promise you this, great dragon. You will never be able to trust me alone. I will dedicate everything I have, every thought, every moment, every waking breath to escaping you. I will not calm down, I will not grow complacent, and I will not lose my resolve. I will find a way out, even if I have to collapse your entire cave, even if I have to walk through the spores, even if it takes 50 years, I will never relent. And you, dragon, will eventually have to kill me to stop me, because I will get to the Midnight Sea, and I will find the sorceress, and I will save the man I love. Her voice echoed in the cavernous room. The dragon let it fade, watching her with ancient eyes. The sorceress? Zysa said. You're going to try and confront the sorceress? Tress nodded. Then perhaps taking you captive now would be a mercy. Exactly, Crow said, just as I've been. Oh, hush. The dragon waved a claw hand in her direction. The cloth enveloping the nearest pillar suddenly wiggled as if it were alive. It whipped forward, wrapping around Crow's face and gagging her. Zysa studied Tress, watching her with those incomprehensible, swirling eyes. I believe you, he said. Finally, you're too driven to make a useful servant. Thank you, Tress said. Crow in turn began to claw at the gag, her eyes wide. The strange black cloth wrapped her further, then pulled her back tight against the pillar. She really is awful, isn't she? The dragon said. I'm afraid so, sir, Tress said. Well, I suppose I do need someone to scrub floors now that I've promoted Lily. The dragon stretched, rising up and arching his back like a cat, one that was over 20 feet tall and covered in scales. I make it a point not to interfere too much in the workings of the society above. If you really have made the discovery she mentioned, then by taking you, I'd be interrupting the planet's technological progress. I'll pick that as my excuse for letting you go. Excuse, sir? Tress asked. Yes, excuse, he said, making it clear he would explain no further. What is the payment you request? Payment? Tress looked at Crow. Oh, I hadn't gotten that far, sir. And I don't know that I can take payment for selling a person. If she really is a spore eater, Zysis said, then you've saved her life. I can heal the disease, yes, but I wouldn't have mentioned it to her that the healing only lasts a year or two at most. The infestation will return, so long as she is away from me. The only path toward long-term survival is to remain here. Tress considered that and thought that if he was lying and the cure was permanent, this would be an excellent way to make certain Crow remained with him willingly, and so Tress wisely remained silent on the matter. Regardless, the dragon said, the deal has been struck. I must pay you however little I think the trade was worth. So ask your boon, be quick with it. Can you remove a curse the sorceress has bestowed? No, he said, nor will I do anything to help your quest. There is precisely one being I fear on this planet, and no, your friend Sephirdarius doesn't count. Rude. I don't know if there's anything I want, Tress said, feeling exhausted. My life is enough, she hesitated, unless... Yes? Would you consider 3 small boons instead of 1 large one? Chapter 53. I'm sorry. Yeah. The Survivor. A short time later, a very tired Tress hiked to the last few feet up out of the tunnel holding 3 cloth-wrapped packages, 1 larger, 2 smaller. She was greeted by the sight of Laggart, standing watch on the ship's rail. The 2 stood facing one another while his brain caught up to his eyes. Then his common sense came huffing up behind, with an ache in its side. He lowered his gun and backed away. This allowed a crowd of more friendly faces to appear. They cheered as Tress sluggishly settled into the ship's launch. The tunnel collapsed in on itself as soon as the Dugs began hoisting her up to the deck. At the top, she was greeted by an ecstatic Anne. How? She demanded. How? The captain probably should have gagged me, Tress said. Take note, Anne, if you ever go make an important deal, make certain your payment can't speak for itself. You'd be surprised how often that advice has been relevant in my travels. Here, Tress said, handing one of the small packages to Anne. The dragon couldn't help me with my problem, so I got this for you. The woman took it, frowning, but Tress was too tired to explain at the moment. The crew, realizing this, gave her little space as she picked her way over to where Dr. Ulam was tending Fort and Saleh. Their wounds were already being treated by one of his fantastic salves. They didn't heal a person immediately, but they did speed it up and left one feeling in much better shape. Ulam was explaining the benefits of the various noses he could provide. I've always wanted to try the one that can't smell cheese, but Fort just slumped against the rail, staring ahead as if dazed. Tress knelt, then delicately unwrapped the larger of the 2 remaining packages. Inside was another board like the one Crow had destroyed. Fort sat up immediately. He looked from her to the board and then back to her. Then he hugged her. No words needed to be said. Anne walked up holding the pair of spectacles she had unwrapped, one end dangling from her fingers as if she were holding a dead mouse by the tail. The dragon, Tress explained, says you have something called microphagia. Microphagia. He gave a technical explanation, but I didn't understand it. I don't know if that disease could have caused you to somehow hit someone standing behind you, but, well, those spectacles should help. Tress handed the final package, more of an envelope, to Soleil, then took and walked to the steps of the quarterback. She settled on the steps and tried to process everything. The others left her alone for the time being, so Tress wasn't interrupted until Soleil came limping over the crutch, using a crutch. You should probably stay off that leg, Tress noted. Soleil shrugged, settling down with some effort next to Tress. She carried a folded piece of paper. Philostrate City, Soleil said. I searched Philostrate City. The dragon says your father arrived there 6 months ago. Damn, Soleil said, right after I left. If I'd kept hunting, never knowing he was behind me. Then she reached over and gave Tress a hug. It was exactly what Tress needed right then. When emotions start leaking, it's best to give the body a good squeeze and force them right on out, like lancing a boil. When their emotions were thoroughly lanced for the moment, Soleil forced herself to stand up. Crutch under her arm, she saluted. It will take us about a week to reach the Midnight Sea, Captain, but supplies should hold out just fine. We bought plenty at the last port. Soleil, Tress said, you should be captain. Can't be captain, Soleil said. It's my job to make certain the captain is making good decisions. That's what a first mate is for. But you're trying to make a bad decision, Captain. Soleil said, see, I'm good at this job. The midnight is dangerous, Tress said. The dragon wasn't willing to give me any help. Even he fears the sorceress. Well, Soleil said, we'll just have to figure out how to cross the midnight like we did the Crimson, Captain. Do we sail now or wait for morning? Other objections died before Tress could get them out. This is what she wanted. We sail tonight, helmswoman, Tress said. And if I'm the captain, then I'm going to claim Crow's bed. Don't wake me up unless Death himself has shown up, nails in his eyes. Even then, see if you can stall. And that's the end of chapter 53 and parts 5.